All right. Well, podcast number one coming in here. I have Final Gospel with me, my Resident Evil expert. I got good old Zen with me, friend and buddy of ours. I'm Corey, and we'll be talking about Resident Evil as a series. Where is it at now? Where it's going to? Resident Evil 7. This is coming in a little late now, but I think it's enough time has passed that we kind of openly talk about it. They just finished off the movie series. Thank God they did, and so on and so forth. So just real quick, Larry, say hello to the people.
Yo,
Zen, say something for the people.
How's it going, everybody?
That's good. So, of course, right now, as we do stuff like this, we pre-recorded audio, and then sooner or later, of course, if the audience does get big enough and warranted, then we will, of course, do live, to have the interaction with people right now. But, Larry, so tell the people what you know about Resident Evil, why you should have a floor to talk about this kind of stuff.
it's pretty simple, really. As children during the video game age, we all were looking for a game, that one game that spoke out to us, that was like all inclusive. Because, beforehand, video games were very much a linear process of pickup, platforming, jumping. You weren't really collecting anything. There was no real narrative beyond the point of, Princess Peach was stolen or the gorilla took Princess Peach. And beyond that, there was no real narrative being told at the time, except for like the very obscure story of Mega Man, something like that. Most people, if they did play it, they really enjoyed Mega Man, but it's a completely different feeling. Resident Evil, when it came in, it brought in a whole new genre that I think everybody really enjoyed, which was you weren't this super powered monstrosity tearing through the world. You were very much so a completely different entity altogether. You could find yourself in situations that you had no idea about, and now you can turn back around and look at it in later years, and you're still thinking about the story. You're still following breadcrumbs that were laid by the cast and the writers. I am not thinking about Mario, 1, 2, or 3 like that. It was a linear experience, and they've just repeated that format, and there was no behind-the-scenes narrative. So I believe that Resident Evil, of course, gave this beautiful narrative, but just enough to where you had to search for these things. Now, Dark Souls, I think, has picked up on that, and people love the idea of that, to where it's an obscure story that you have to patch together. It's a patchwork story, but when it comes to Resident Evil, people wanted it to be a fucking action game first, and then they wanted, really good story. I think they had the perfect format of, zombies and scariness, and then they fucked it in later series. I think it really has degraded. Four was the magic bullet that saved and killed the entire genre, in my opinion. And that's all I gotta say about that.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good. What's up, man?
Not too much. If I can chime in on Larry's point, we're talking about Resident Evil, which I think we are.
We are.
I think, in kind of in the bubble, I think Dead Space did a very similar thing where it started off being very horror, scary, isolated. And, Dead Space 2 kind of took that and kept it going. Dead Space 3 really turned into an action game. And Resident Evil kind of did that over a longer period of time. The newest Resident Evil, the Biohazard, seems to have gone back to its horror roots. And I'm liking the series going that way. I hope it continues to push towards being scary.
Now, real quick, let me give LB kind of an intro to who he is. This is a good friend of all of ours, a really good gamer, has a wonderful outlook on a lot of different things. So I do want to say that. Thank you, LB, for joining us right here. But yeah, I think with a lot of horror games, and I think the biggest thing going for Resident Evil is that it did change the narrative for good and bad. I think it became too big in itself and didn't. I think Silent Hill did it right by kind of staying truer to its origins, unlike Resident Evil. That and I think five is kind of where it kind of flew off the handle, flew off the rail with action, with the Call of Duties and everything trying to compete with games like Call of Duty and so on and so forth like that, and it kind of just flew off the rails and whatnot. But again, we have hope about that.
Well, okay, so there was a lot of really good points brought up there. One, I believe what happened was, because I was such a huge fan of the first Dead Space, for the exact reasons that LB just pointed out. It harked back to these beautiful moments of what in the actual fuck is going on. Like, you have no real clue what's going on. You have this beautiful installation that you're checking out. I mean, it's practically a space Resident Evil if you look at it. And it's bare bones mechanics where you have Isaac, having to struggle, because he's not all freaking powerful. He's, quite easily overwhelmed at parts. Especially if you're not a skilled gamer, that is going to beat your ass. You're not agile by any means of the word. But to me, it was a beautiful blend of the mechanics of Resident Evil 4 and also the ambience of what Resident Evil, the earlier Resident Evils, were trying to portray. Now, Silent Hill jumped its own shark. It did the same thing that Resident Evil did, in my opinion. It tried to future-proof, and in that case, fucked itself. I've always said that future-proofing your video games is usually the swan song of a series. As soon as we allowed rebirths and reboots to be an okay thing, because they're trying to treat our video game medium like they treat the movie genre, where it's okay to rehash and retell stories over and over and over again. But they're selling you a brand at this point. I mean, look how many reboots we saw just in the last 2 to 3 years with RoboCop and Total Recall, now Power Rangers. They're nostalgia digging on us, and it's not fucking fair. They could have just had a whole new IP, a whole new property to work with, but instead they'd rather go back and work on something trusted, and that's what they've done with the Resident Evil series, because Resident Evil 7 has as much in common with Resident Evil 1 as Resident Evil 1 has in common with 5. And the reason why I say that is the perspective is a big deal to me. With the perspective comes a whole new spectrum of gameplay that I am, it's like taking Final Fantasy Tactics, but turning it to a Final Fantasy 7 viewpoint. That genre is based off of that third person, based off of that, tank control. People hated it, but that was a part of the game. That is what made the thing so damn difficult, was because, it simulated and emulated crisis for you. If someone came up behind you quickly, until later installations of the game, you had a quick turn, it was hard to be able to react to something. You were a bit more lethargic. Yeah, now in these games, you can snap to it quickly, and you can answer problems all day long. There's no real speed bumps for you in play, and because of that, because of the empowerment of the player, all of these challenges, it's ludicrous. Especially in Resident Evil 5, they marketed it as a horror game. They said evil knows bounds or evil's back and all this shit, and it was more like a Street Fighter meets an anime, it jumped its own shark. I mean, to me,
now Larry, some people will argue if you look at the sales numbers, Resident Evil 5 sold the most, 6.5 million units, and Resident Evil 6 came second with 5.2 million units, versus you say something like 2 that only sold 4.9, or just say 5, or Resident Evil 3 that sold 3.5. Some people look at you and say, "Nah, man, you're crazy." Resident Evil 5 was a success. Resident Evil 6 was a success.
And the reason why I would say Resident Evil 5 was a success was because how many people played Resident Evil 4 with a friend and said, "Man, I wish my buddy could play this with me." Resident Evil 5 made that promise, and they delivered on that promise. It was a Resident Evil co-op game where you could do all the cool shit you could in Resident Evil 4, but now with your buddy. And that's what it is. They shifted it from a Resident Evil single player campaign to a multiplayer shooter. And then even that, look what came out after that for the 3DS, which was Resident Evil Mercenaries, which was a complete fucking not PvP game, but it was a whole mini game brought to itself. They pretty much just hoard the best part of the system out and left all narrative, right out the fucking window. So that's the reason why I think it sold well. But if you want to talk about numbers, look how well the remake and then HD mastered remake did. It did absolutely phenomenal in such a way that they finally greenlit the remake of Resident Evil 2.
You think Revelations would have been bigger if it was on all platforms instead of being on 3DS and then ported over to Steam?
Revelations was plagued with several downfalls. The Resident Evil Revelations 1, I did not play 2 because I don't particularly care for episodic releases where they, build a little bit of the game, sell you a little bit, and they kind of like conveyor belt feed you this narrative over the course of several months. I don't like to play that. I'm a binge player. I have the time to sit down and play a game for 8 hours straight, and I'd like to do that. Having to take a large break in between sections, that's a disconnect. That's unimmersive for me. Or immersive. I can't lock into it that way. Resident Evil Revelations was a beautiful game that had some pretty serious flaws. One, I believe it not being able to be on all platforms from the get-go because there was no faith in that game. It's the reason why it was a 3DS exclusive originally. Two, they did like one of the biggest fuck-ups that they do in these games is that you get playing as a character and then they stop and put you in a whole nother scenario with a whole nother person. No one likes that. I don't know anyone who has ever told me, like, my favorite part of Final Fantasy VIII was when I got to play as Laguna. I loved when I got to, like, not be the main character that I've been fucking working on this whole time and had leveled up and all working out my party. I absolutely love playing the side mission shit when I'm trying to get my main story boner on. It just, that zapping, I guess is what they call it. And they did the same thing in Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty. You were sitting there and you played as Snake, then you played as what's his name, Jack, and then you go back to playing as Snake for a little bit. Like, make up your fucking mind. Don't spoon feed me a character here.
Well, it's funny because me and LB did go through Resident Evil 5 together. I remember when we got the game for 360, and we went through the game together, couch co-op, and it was beautiful. He was top.
You break it up pretty bad, bro.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. That's my shitty connection. Trying to run, put two things at one time. Did I come in? Am I better?
Yeah.
Okay, I was saying that me and LB ran through Resident Evil 5 together, couch co-op, and you're right, that did make it good, but like you said, episodic things for Resident Evil is not good, because that's what 6 was a bunch of episodes of you playing everybody's story, and if I remember correctly, the only story I really cared about was Chris. Everybody else was just, to me, crap, to be honest with you. Just not a fun game and not really think so. But I mean, again, that's just me. LB could feel differently about the situation. I personally don't. I think Resident Evil 7 with Biohazard, I think it's fun to me. I'm not a big first person guy myself, and just because the game is first person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be scary. I still would just love a third person. Not even third person, bird's eye view, tank controlled. Let me find a bishop key and a lighter that doesn't mean anything to me right now, but later on in a game, and then find oil, and then have to burn a painting to find a key to open the door to where I find a queen key, and then later on it makes sense when I have to figure out the puzzle. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. Like I miss that about Resident Evil, and it just seemed like we're not ever going to get that again, and I don't know why. I mean, it even happened with Dead Space. Dead Space even had you in that time when you got, I believe you got cylinder cores and stuff like that. You used an engineer, and you had to engineer your way out of a fucking spaceship, basically because it was crawling with a symbiote, trying to kill you. So,
Well, okay. So we'll tap on the six right quick. Is what I think six was their last ditch effort to try to put some quality and quantity into a game. I think they took a lot of what people were saying about Resident Evil 2 because the big hype that most fans of Resident Evil tell you is the reason why they love 2 so much is the replayability was pretty high for being a Resident Evil. Because technically, you had to beat the game 4 times. You had Leon scenario A and B, and Claire's scenario A and B, and it was really neat to play both of these scenarios to flush out the story. Even though that with the scenarios they came the what if factor and what is actual canon, what isn't canon. It was just really, in my opinion, that was what they tried to do. Is they tried to make an interesting story but they told too much in Leon's campaign. Like if you played Leon's campaign, you understood the story fucking completely. And then, they bring in Chris, who Chris's campaign actually has the ending of Resident Evil 6 in it, right? And is the actual end of it. Then you had, was it Cheryl and Jake or Jack or whatever the fuck his name was, some made up fantasy character, some Wesker bastard child that had so little to actually do with the fucking story. It was sickening. And then you had Ada, who was a single player game, but because of bitching in the community, made it a third person game, or not third person, but a co-op version, which made no sense because there was just like a BSA member just standing there, like, hey man, I've been waiting for you to get on this sub this whole time, even though you have an insertion unit. I've been here, whatever. And they tried to bring back that feeling of, you wanted to play through scenario B because maybe there's some questions in scenario A you didn't have answered, and maybe this will clarify. But the formula was all fucked up. They just did it all ass backwards. By the time I was done playing Leon's, I was like, man, I can't wait to get in on Chris's fucking thing and finish his. It felt monotonous and boring by the time I got to it.
Uh, LB, what do you think are the downfalls with Resident Evil right now as a franchise, with them feeling like they got to get away from the tank controls because all other games, at least I think they feel all other games are evolving. If you look at the, games like Call of Duty, and they're evolving theirs, their game, and they feel like they can't come out with a traditional tank style um, kind of like horror survival, more to horror action. What do you think is the downfall with Resident Evil? And then you think moving forward, is Resident Evil going to change, or is it going to be this new third person? Forget about Chris, forget about everybody else, forget about Raccoon City. This is the new thing. Do you think this is the right uh, way they're going into this, or what do you think?
Well, a couple things. First thing is, I don't think that the new way they're doing the game is actually a de-evolution of controls, or or them stepping away from traditional controls and backtracking to get onto the first person shooter bandwagon kind of thing. I haven't played Biohazard 7 Resident Evil yet, but I've actually looked into it. I watched a couple of playthroughs because I was interested in it, simply because it is quintessentially a great game to play in VR. And I think that that's where this was a test case for making a very scary, well done Resident Evil VR game. And people have given this game, if you play the game standard, it's like I think the guy said it was a 7.5 or an 8. But if you play it in VR, it's a 9.5 because it's just that scary to play in VR. I think that that's maybe where they want to take the series, because playing a Resident Evil game in VR sounds terrifying. It sounds interesting. It sounds exciting. Having one of those situations where you're exploring some old mansion, or subway tunnels, and you look to your left, look to your right, you see bugs crawling on your toe, that's going to be a very unique experience, in terms of general consumer games. And I think if they can do that well, that'll be a great place to take the series in terms of making it true horror, suspense, kind of thing. As far as the series evolving over time, I think Resident Evil 5, like you guys said, was really about co-op and having fun together. Resident Evil 6 kind of lost pace with that and tried to just become a very centralized action game. And it didn't really work out. I think a lot of people found it palatable, like in terms of, oh, that looks fun, I can play that. But in terms of it having substance, I didn't think it really did that. That's why you don't really see them sequeling that game or continuing on with those storylines. They're trying to find a new outlet. And I think them going to this first-person VR, is a good idea.
Shield, come on! Press this way. Make for that mansion!
Into central focus and do well, because Resident Evil really has well distinguished that series, and they've led the way in a lot of ways.
The show must go on.
They can do the VR, pull it off.
It's not like we're out of this yet.
Make it scary.
I think you'd better take a look at this.
What is it?
I think that we don't need heavy-handed characters to carry us through it. Like I remember,
Chris!
I was very uninterested in some of the characters in Resident Evil 5. You're like, Wesker, ooh, I know Wesker. What excited about the characters from the two different stories, because the new characters, a very different mode of storytelling for this company. So I hope that they continue on that path. And try to do games like that. I think VR is going to be a big wave of the future in video games. I think it's smart for them to go there. I think horror is a very easily applicable type of VR game. I think they just need to keep going. Do you agree, disagree?
Oh, no. I'm just saying if Corey had something to say about it. Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, there's a lot of interesting facts that got brought up there, like the reason why these old characters are so fantastic, not even fantastic, they're just memorable. When you mention Wesker, like, oh fuck Wesker, it's because there was such a rich story built with these characters, and I think that's the reason why I'm just like boycotting the piss out of Resident Evil 7, is because it's the last fucking straw for me. We've called back, a lot of the fans have called back over and over and over again, like, if you want to do a fucking redo, then what you need to do is take us back, to 2005, right before Resident Evil 4 drops, and do just like countless other games have done, and be like, Resident Evil 4 all the way to 7 is an alternate timeline. That's all there is. Take us back. Back to during the storyline when Resident Evil 3 drops, which that's 1999, right? We have it drops roughly around the same time, maybe a year before Code Veronica, which is the true Resident Evil 3. So just make the events of Resident Evil 3 not happen at all. Period. I mean, that does suck because you do lose Nemesis. Once again, you lose Nemesis. But the storyline can have some fucking closure, and that's the reason why they have been spinning their tires, is there's no fucking closure. You gave me at the beginning of Resident Evil 4, at the beginning of Resident Evil 4, you got this, 10-second fucking video answer to like, oh, for all intents and purposes, Umbrella Corp has been, thoroughly fucked in its ass, and now all the hard work you've done over the past 6 years has been absolutely dick all. Congratulations, you beat Umbrella. And now you're some special agent going to go save the fucking daughter of the president against, I don't know, some fucking weird Italian group. Like, I don't give a that made the game was fun, and that's what fucked it. Was that it was such an awesome system. The over-the-shoulder laser pointer of doom, getting to do crazy shit like that. That would have been great if that gameplay would have been put into the Resident Evil narrative. If Resident Evil Code Veronica would have played like that, it would have been an all-star 5, 5-star. Everybody would have loved it. But the problem with Resident Evil 4 is it's a fantastic game, but it's not a Resident Evil. It has shit all to do with Resident Evil. It is this weird amalgamation of someone's wet dream, because they knew so little about what they were doing. When they were trying to figure out what to do with Resident Evil 4, they accidentally made Devil May Cry. You know what I'm saying? They were so fucking far out of their depths there because the main director of the game, some shit like that happened. They bring him back, he builds this awesome system, and then they let him go again. It's the Putting the VR helmet on, putting the face mask on, and being immersed into the Resident Evil world. But right now,
6 years have passed since that horrendous incident.
They want to do VR.
It was right before I was to take on my duties of protecting the president's daughter, and she was abducted. Who would have thought that my first job would have been a rescue mission?
On the other side of the bridge.
¡No dejes que se escape!
Vaya por detrás. Something's happened to the people here.
¡Te voy a matar!
You carry the same blood as us, it seems. Nevertheless, you're an outsider.
Leon. Long time no see.
Ada. So it is true.
True? About what?
You, working with Wesker.
And that U.S. government lapdog, Leon.
If you do happen to encounter him, put him out of commission.
He's a survivor of Raccoon City. We can do without the extra distraction. Time is almost up. Take out anything that might interfere with our plans.
Been a long time, comrade.
You're the one who kidnapped Ashley. What do you want?
Sample of them, that's all.
You got her involved just for that? If you even scratch her, I'll break your bones.
We have to get that parasite out of your body.
You carry the same blood as us, it
Resident Evil 4.
xenophobia, in my opinion, that these terrorist groups are out there dropping BOWs and all this shit. It just feeds too much into common narrative for me to really get the fuck behind it. So the BSAA to me is the Homeland Security Act. It's fucking silly.
We'll see.
So,
May I interject?
Oh, go ahead.
I agree with what you're saying. I'm not as big a Resident Evil buff as all of you, I think, but I do know a fair amount about the history, Raccoon City and whatnot. I've played through Resident Evil 4, 5, and part of 6, and throughout those, there's hardly any mention of any of the actual history. I mean, hardly any at all.
Casualties continue to mount.
They're
over the
great
long
games
years I have struggled.
in, I guess their own sense.
More and
but
more, I find myself wondering if it's all worth fighting.
It's kind of off track from what Resident Evil really is.
Who knows?
Yeah, they don't build on the mythos at all. There's no added story to that.
Yes, I agree.
like, I do remember in like Resident Evil 2 going through like again, it's been a while since I played it, but I just remember like finding a diary of the mayor of the city and seeing the mayor and what he was going through, or finding research papers of a doctor working for how they intended for this to be something good, but then it ended to turn into something bad, and you kind of get that rich kind of lore that if you seeked it, you got it. You know what I mean? Or you heard about I forgot who's the movie based off of, in Anna, like not Anna, but they based the movie off the stories of the girl that was in diaries and books and like that came out in Resident Evil 2, and I believe 3 as well, so on and so forth. So it takes you kind of like that story and so forth.
Resident Evil 7 is supposed to come. It's supposed to what
I have a job to do, and I'm gonna see it through.
Before the T-Riders exist by the Umbrella Corps. At the end of the game, supposedly the Umbrella Corps show up, and a lot of people think that Resident Evil 7 Biohazard is a prequel to the series that we deal with in Resident Evil 2, and they think that the games will follow into rebooting the series with this new VR first-person technology.
I think, from what I understood from the directors and stuff, I think this is supposed to take place after Resident Evil 1, but before the action of 2.
Yeah,
so
that's what I mean.
You can almost argue that this is kind of a soft reboot of them going back and telling,
Well, they've said as much as it was supposed to be a
bioorganic weapons are a global threat. Start working with the rest of the world on the Raccoon City incident. Mentioning my desire to reveal. I'm going to tell them everything. I've always valued your friendship, Leon.
Stay
where you are.
Or whatever they call it. And we have this VR technology, and we're playing through this.
Mr. President!
This but with different characters. If you see Leon, you see Claire, maybe, you know what I mean. But you're a different character in these events in that city.
It's not my fault.
Would that be okay for you?
I did this.
So if we went to Raccoon City and it was used purely as a talking about.
90% of the population in Tall Oaks has been infected with the virus. That runs out to about 70,000 hostiles.
Yeah, this is Raccoon City all over again. You want to tell me what's in there?
It's better if I show you.
I can't keep running away. I have to face the truth. Accept responsibility.
HQ to Alpha Team. No change to your mission. Suppress the bioterror outbreak while proceeding to point Ace of Spades.
Alpha to HQ, this is worse than we thought. We need backup.
It's regenerating. Alright, first things first. 200,000 up front. Another 200 when this is over. Oh, VOWs? Those are extra. Much better off as a mercenary.
I'm not gonna let anything happen to you. The world needs you.
You play
And I'm not me, just my blood.
Like a shadow figure.
Oh, the world can have it. If someone ponies up the dough.
After what she's done to us, how many of our men are dead because of that bitch? I'm right there with you, Captain. But your personal vendetta isn't gonna get us anywhere.
If the game delivers that, then I will not only will I buy this first-person Resident Evil, not only will I do that, I will also support further releases as long as it continues to, I'll say it, cater to what I want to know about the series. If it begins to slowly turn into a multiplayer, jam fest of DLCs, then no, I don't want to. I don't want to deal with that. I also think it's kind of fucking shitty of them because what you're referring to with Resident Evil 7 is that the tie-in is going to come in a fucking DLC after the main game. And I get that it's a, because you do get to see like the Umbrella helicopter and all that stuff at the end, which is, of course you're going to get geeked out about that because the Umbrella's back. You're like, holy shit, there's Umbrella, that's bad news. But then the next DLC is going to have Chris Redfield in it. and you're like, well, what the hell? Is he going to be like a merc for hire? I mean, what the fuck's going on with him, you know? And it's interesting to me. But I've seen so many incantations of Chris Redfield. I don't know who the fuck he is at this point. So who is this Chris Redfield, and why am I so excited to see him? You know, is it the Chris Redfield from Code Veronica 5 or 6? Like, which one is he? Is he the drunk bastard we picked up in the Philippines? Is he the hardcore son of a bitch that can punch a boulder? Or is he the guy who's looking after his sister? And that's some unfinished business. Who is he?
Or is he the fighter from Marvel vs. Capcom?
Throwing zombies at people, or you know, what was in that? What is that? Project Exo. Maybe he's gonna limit break on somebody. I don't know.
Or maybe he's the Chris Spence conquistador. Yeah, he has slowly turned into what Super Mario is. He kind of does a little bit.
What is that?
But we are coming up on about 36 minutes, and I know more are kind of like saying, well, get to the point of the video. But the point was pretty much just, you know, here's some very seasoned gamers pretty much talk about what we feel is wrong with the Resident Evil series. So kind of real quick final thoughts, guys, about what you think should change or shouldn't change about Resident Evil, or if you feel it's good, you think it's going to be a place, I say that, or if not, just real quick though, I'll just go first. I think I boycotted September, just like Larry. I wasn't interested in the first person. I wasn't interested in moving back. I'm always believing forward. I don't support movies or anything of that nature. So, you know, and like I said again, my favorite one was 3 into 4. So I never really liked 5. I thought 5 was like 6 was into not that good. And of course 7. I did like Revelations, but I do think, and they didn't get my money again. That was like a Revelation style game where they put me somewhere and I have to figure something out. That to me, that is survival horror. And when I think Resident Evil, I will never forget about, you know, survival horror. So at least that's just, you know, final.
My final thoughts on the matter are, I pretty much agree with LB, what he was saying, that they're working toward, you know, the VR. I like the idea of it being completely immersed.
One of the surviving members of RPD's famous stars.
Getting the piss scared out of me. I kind of love it. I hope they stick with the story.
Alright, copy.
Shut up. Make one wrong move and I'll shoot you.
That was close.
I can't get the door open!
Who do you work for? Who sent you?
Biohazard contamination detected. Level 3.
Final gospel.
I think the very last thing that I'll touch on is my swan song to Resident Evil in this conversation is I want what I paid for, you know? I bought Resident Evil 1, then Resident Evil 2,
Blair Redfield. Hold it right there.
You know, and so on and so forth, because I was working towards absolution.
Who is that?
I was never given that.
Still alive?
I came for lecture.
Steve, behind you!
Yeah, I feel a little entitled by it because I've spent...
What's wrong, Steve? Shoot him!
Because I was so interested in anything to get a little extra view on it. And to me, story's king, and always has been. The gameplay even when I was younger, of course, oh, wouldn't it be cool if I could have 2 shotguns at the same time? But I also knew that having 2 shotguns at the same time would be OP as fuck and would break immersion. I am excited and scared that my Resident Evil is dead forever. That it's gone, and this new version is going to maybe bring it back. But it's a really difficult call for me to give it a thumbs up, mostly because I've seen what Capcom does with titles, because to be honest with you, the Resident Evil is their flagship at this point. It's always been. It's what saved them in the early '90s anyway, or the late '90s. They've oversaturated the market with Street Fighters and Mega Mans, and they've pissed on everything else. And this is kind of like, here you go. They have a tendency of oversaturating. So I'm really hoping that with the VR, with the VR enhancements that are coming out, I'd love to see that. But I'd like to add that it's not just called horror, it is called survival horror. And I'd like to see the ability to take care of oneself within the horror. I don't want them to follow the recipe of games like Outlast and recipes of games like Insomnia, which are great games in their own right. But with Resident Evil, you need a monochrome of I've got a fucking pistol. I can fight back a bit, but yeah, pistol's only going to take you so far. I liked that, and I liked story hunting. So, and last, I'll always keep a candle burning, but it's getting dim.
All right, gentlemen. So thank you for this. Thank you for you guys out there listening. Please like, subscribe, comment as you see fit, and there will be more topics moving forward, of course, on newer games and so on and so forth. Like maybe we might do a Mass Effect 1, or maybe we might do a Mega Man, so on and so forth. But we will keep this content pushing. Again, please like, subscribe, and yeah, that's it.